What's up, y'all? It's Dame. Welcome to my channel, and welcome back to my channel. If you're coming back, but let's talk about gear, right? See, I I have a lot of gear, and I just want to share with y'all. I bought so much gear that I realized I didn't need a lot of it, especially in this time. Because I started at about 30 years ago. I started doing music, and basically it's like Fruity Loops when Fruity Loops or FL Studio when it was like still early. And I was using Fruity Loops, I would just loop stuff and I would have my drum sounds, loop them in there, then bring them back to another DAW and have it in there. And then I would use that other DAW for the melodies or whatever. Or I would have like a Casio keyboard and I had this MIDI interface, and the interface was called MIDI Sport 2x2, and basically that was before like it was a USB, but you had the ability to plug in two MIDI ports in and out. So when you plugged in the MIDI ports, right, yeah, like that helped record MIDI and everything. So when I started doing that, it was a lot of latency and everything. So yeah, that was before I had like an actual controller. So when I bought a controller later on, then it went into like USB, so straight USB, not the MIDI ins and out. So basically, like I had started with my first controller, which was a M Audio Oxygen 49, and that was my first controller. One of my friends had like a 25 version, and I bought the 49. And also had my first audio interface. It was a US 122 Tascam, made by Tascam. So, and I had that setup. I had that setup for at least all the way until like 2012 probably. Yeah, and I had the same old computer from like 2002. The things was kind of hard because I had a slow computer with barely like a half of a gig of RAM. So basically, I was seeing a lot of blue screens and things wasn't good. The computer was pretty slow, and I was working on Logic 5.5, and it had the oxygen feature. I don't know what I'm not sure what the oxygen feature was, but it worked well with the oxygen M Audio Oxygen keyboard. And that was when Logic was still on Windows, but eventually later on it went into full blown Apple, and I wasn't an Apple user like that. So yeah, so basically, yeah, so I kept going, and then from there I just started to buy. I had a new laptop that could handle the pressure of a lot of VSTs and processing and everything and audio. And then I eventually had bought like an M Audio interface, another the US 122. Basically it had went out and there were no updates for it. It couldn't work with like Windows 8 and up. So yeah, that was that. So but from then, like around 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, even up to 2021, I was just buying a lot of controllers from like I was buying, yeah, I had multiple M Audio controllers, like about 3 or 4 Akai controllers, and I also bought like, I even have a Roly Seaboard block, so I bought so much stuff, and I realized that I wasn't really gonna use all those things often. It'll probably once in a blue moon where I'll pull out NPC live too, or it was just like I was just realizing that like a computer having a computer is basically like it was good to have them. Like, don't get me wrong, it's still good to have them. It's just that I realized what I use the most would probably be like it would be the launch key, this launch key, and then I'll use the mini once in a while. I have the mini and the Roly Seaboard block. I pretty much use that only when I'm using the Seaboard. I mean, you could use a Seaboard as a controller, but it's a little block with, with damn, what they call that? It's a little. Yeah, it's a foamy key bed, seaboard block, and it's really small. But yeah, I used this, and then I used the Akai MPK Mini when I have limited space and stuff like that. But I also have an M Audio Hammer. I have, yeah, 88. I had so many controls I can't even remember them. A lot of them was boxed up. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of them are boxed up and everything. But at the end of the day, like the best controller to get, in my opinion, or something that could go along with your DAW, unless you're still clicking the mouse. Like, there's a lot of people that's still clicking the mouse and they don't need a controller. There's some people on FL Studio clicking the mouse. Some people are good with clicking the mouse and you know clicking the dots in, getting their chords and their notes and everything. Me, I kind of like left that, left that once I started understanding how to play a little bit better when it comes to gear. There's just a preference. There's a, it's like, it's like food. That's what it's become now. It's become food, with controllers and new machines and and all of these new inventions in technology. And another thing too, it's about lights, because a lot of the like these things like they a lot of these things have lights now, a lot of lights, and back then, like equipment weren't light. It wasn't so lighty and shiny and brighty, It was pretty much like regular. The only light that you had one light to show that it was powered on, so basically everything is just more light and it's more tempted to buy, and it's very attractive, you know. And basically I definitely learned that though, that you're not gonna end up using every if you buy like 20 pieces of gear, you're not gonna use all of them all the time. And a lot of times you'll probably end up selling some of it because some of them are just like you're just not gonna go back to them. But we're in a production time of mass production, so everything is just coming out and they're just gonna make the same thing over and over again. But it's up to you to see what you're comfortable with your music flow and your creations and your workflow, so pretty much that's it. And like, comment, share, subscribe, and till next time, I'll see you again. Peace.